Is it recording? Awesome. We are on. So, I'm trying to look how many of us are around right now. We are like a total of 33 learners. Is it 34? 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we are about 34 learners. So let's hope that the others who are yet to join will join us as we continue. So welcome to week 2. Welcome to week 2 of our time together. And this week, we are going to finish on Cloud Foundation. Actually, we are finishing on Cloud Foundations today. And then from tomorrow, we will get into the second main module of the course, Linux. So from tomorrow, we'll be doing Linux. So today, we are going to do two things, just a high-level introduction to two amazing AWS services, and that is AWS S3 and AWS EC2. So Joy will be taking us through AWS EC2 in the afternoon session. So this morning we are going to be looking at AWS S3. And so that is what we are going to be focusing on. And again, just to let you know, this is a high-level introduction to S3. And then Joy will also be doing a high-level introduction to EC2 because it's important for you to at least get to understand one storage service, the main storage service offered by AWS, and the main compute service offered by AWS, because these two will feature in the labs that we'll be doing, even when you'll be handling the likes of Linux. When we'll be doing Linux, you might come across S3, and it's important that you at least get to understand what S3 is early. And then later on in the course, we will do a deep dive into S3. So don't worry about detailed coverage of the topic, because we got you covered. We've already planned for you guys in advance, and I think it's around week 6 or thereabout that we'll now be doing a deep dive for both S3 as a storage service and EC2 as a compute service. So for this time right now, the way we've always told you from the time we began last week, tuliwaambia we like introducing these things so that at least you get a working understanding of some of these services, so that now when we come to doing the deep dive, you guys will be well aware. At least S3 will not be a stranger to you by the time we hit week 6 when we are doing a deep dive. You'll already know that, by the way, there's this thing called S3. And maybe even the process of time before we get to week 6, you will still interact with it, maybe when we are covering other related topics or modules. Yes. So having said that, let's go into our notes and just look at what we are supposed to be covering today. What you're supposed to be covering today. Give it a second for it to load. Yes, 3. Interestingly, I don't know. I think it's Kiprono who told us. I read in one of the exit tickets that you had already checked out S3. Is Kiprono with us this morning? Yeah, I can see you. Benson, good morning. Benson. Benson aniongeleshi. But sikuwa nataka kuweka kwa spot. I just wanted to know, how did you find it? How was it? But it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Awesome. Okay. Okay. So let's look at S3. And now S3 in full is Amazon Simple Storage Service. So the 3S, S3 is Simple Storage Service. So that is one of the leading storage services offered by AWS. And so by the end of this lesson, by the end of this high-level introduction to S3, you will learn the following. 1, describe the purpose and benefits of AWS S3 or Amazon S3, and then explain the basic pricing that S3 uses, the basic pricing that S3 uses. Remember last week, again, when we were doing things to do with pricing, we had mentioned that as we get into the services, we will also look at the pricing models or the pricing plans that AWS offers to its customers. So we will also look at pricing both for this service and for all the other subsequent services that we'll be covering. So those are like the two things that we will be looking at. And then we start by looking at what S3 is. And we are told that S3 is a managed cloud storage solution. It's a managed cloud storage solution, meaning that AWS takes care of all the back-end manenos. Your work is just to bring your whatever you'd like to save in your bucket and you put it in there. And as you can see, even from the pictures themselves, they show you Zinaka, how do you call them? How do you call a bucket in Swahili? Zinaka, I almost say kikapu, sio kikapu. Ndoo. Yeah, they look like ndoo. You see, they look like ndoo, a bucket with a handle. And then in it, you can see those three shapes. We have a triangle, we have a square, and we have a circle. So those ones are representations of objects. So managed S3 as a managed cloud storage solution, this is where objects are stored. So we store, data is stored as an object or objects in buckets. So the buckets are what you see, and then those two shapes that you see in there represents our data that is stored as objects. So storage is virtually unlimited. Virtually unlimited, meaning that you can store as many stuff as you want or as many objects as you want inside your S3 bucket. A single object can be up to 5 TB. One object, in as much as it's unlimited, the storage itself is unlimited, the bucket is unlimited. But now when it comes to storing, a single object can be up to means from to. So up to 5 TB. So a single object can be up to 5 TB. Maybe it's a very big video file that you are storing in there. So that is the maximum size. And again, this is an examinable point. So pay attention to it. You might be asked, what is true about Amazon S3? Then you are given choices. You're given choices, 3 wrong choices, and then 1 right choice. That right choice is a single object can be up to 5 TB. So pay attention to that. 5 TB is the maximum size of any object that you can store in the bucket. But the bucket in itself is unlimited in its holding capacity, meaning that it can hold as many objects as you want. So you can have several 5 TB or even varying sizes of objects inside your bucket. I hope that is clear. Then we also say that Amazon S3 is designed for 11 nines of durability. What do you mean by 11 nines? If you count these nines here, 99.9999999% of durability, meaning that whatever you store inside your bucket can enjoy this kind of durability. What is durability? Durability. Let me see. I had some supporting notes here. Let me just get it. Just a second. Durability. So let me search durability in my notes. Just a second. So we are told that you can enjoy up to 11 nines of durability. So basically, just when you think about durable, just as a word, as an English word, what does durable mean to you? Somebody tell me, what does durable mean to you?
Long lasting.
Long lasting. Give me an example of something that is durable. Or even I'm attaching Monaco advertisement akisema this thing is durable.
Yeah, it means it stays in use for a long time.
It lasts for a long time. An example?
For example, steel. Steel is durable.
Steel. Yes, steel. The kind of a metal, the kind,
yeah.
the type of metal. That is very, very true. So durability refers to how reliably, this is in terms of cloud storage and more specifically when we are talking about S3. So durability here refers to how reliably data is preserved over time. You know, That is the likelihood that your data will still exist and be intact, even after hardware failures, power outages, or disaster. That's why we talk about durability. And when we continue talking about S3, even in this introductory lesson, you'll get to understand how this durability is achieved. And maybe I can just mention it here so that when we meet it, it will just be a repeat. Durability is achieved, one, by the data that you store in your bucket is replicated. No, it is replicated, it is copied. It is copied within that same region. It is copied in other different places, so that it makes sure, okay, just to make sure that in case there is any of those things that we've talked about, be it hardware failure, be it power outage or disaster, you will not lose your data. You know, so AWS is committed to offering 11 nines of durability. You know, 11 nines of durability. So that is important, and actually you might also meet this in your exam. So pay attention to that. So when a cloud provider, let's say like AWS S3, says a service offers this kind of durability, what they mean here is that data is extremely unlikely to ever be lost or corrupted. You know, why? Because they've made copies of it across different parts, or maybe we can say in different buckets or in different points within that region. This is the same region, but now you have copies of your data all over the place, so that Kikumana in one side, the others can always be gotten as something that can help you to deal with it. So, yes, that is that. So again, I think maybe by tomorrow or end of the week, we will give you this. We will give you any support notes that you might need just to make this point clear. Customers have granular access to buckets and objects, meaning that once you have sent your data or you've uploaded your data to an S3 bucket, you can actually access it. And by granular access, it means that you as the bucket owner, you have access to that data, you have access to that bucket, you have access to those objects, and then it is up to you to define who else can access that data, who else can access those objects. You know, who else can access that S3 bucket? So we already say that S3 is a managed cloud storage solution. Objects can be almost any data file. And here, when you're talking about data files, you're talking about documents, you're talking about images, you're talking about videos. So you can send your documents to an S3 bucket. You can send your images, pictures, etc. to your S3 bucket. You can send your videos. You can also send your audio files to your S3 bucket. When you add objects to a bucket, you must give them a unique name. All right? You must give them a unique name, which is called an object key. So any object you send to your bucket must have a unique name. This name will identify that object. No, because this is a bucket. And then Amazon S3 is object level storage. Again, this is examinable. Object level storage. If you want to change a part of a file, let's say, for example, you have uploaded a document. If you want to change that document, you must make the change and then re-upload the entire modified file. No. Let's say, for example, you had a file that you're working on, and then you have made, let's say, for example, it's your company policy that you guys have written, and then you've uploaded it to your S3 bucket, and then now you want to modify it. You can download it or use a local copy that you have, and then this local copy, or the one that you've downloaded, you improve on it, or you add to it, or you edit it, and then you will have to re-upload it. You know, you'll have to re-upload it and then make it the most relevant. By re-uploading, you are now trying to redirect and say that this is now the document, this is the most updated, this is the recently updated document that you are going to use. Yes, Mark, I can see your hand up.
Yes, so I have a question.
Yes, Mark.
So will you have to rename it after you re-upload it? Or how does it work? Or you will use the same object key?
Yes, good question. Yes, two things. One, you can rename. However, to make it a bit consistent, because there's a possibility that guys were already using that document maybe for reference, you can version it. Okay, okay. Versioning is also a way of renaming. Maybe you can call it like let's say, for example, it's a security policy document. The first one was called security policy document V1. So maybe you can call this one security policy document V2. You see, V2. So you can name it like this. Let me just share something here so that we are together. An example of what I mean. File, new. Let me just show you. Don't save. Let me just show you something. So I'm saying the first one, you might have named it as security underscore policy underscore V1. So this new one that you are uploading, you can just name it the same, because in big organizations, there's that possibility that you guys have so many documents that you're using. So you can name it this way. So you see, there will be no conflict in terms of, so just sometimes hata ukifanya tu kazi locally, when you're trying to save a file to the same path or to the same place within your machine, maybe inside the same folder, there's that problem of when you try to name it, the name that it already has, it tells you that that file already exists. Do you want to overwrite it? And I've told you here, there is no overwriting here. You need to re-upload it. So you can re-upload it under a different name and then direct everybody that now we are no longer using V1. We are using what? V2. You see, we are now using V2. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And for another question, can you make folders within the S3 bucket, or is it just files?
Yes, you can make folders. However, those folders are not typically the normal folders that we know of. Folders are just used to organize. Okay, folders, S3 does not treat them as folders. Although when you go to the console, you'll see add a folder. You can add a folder, but this folder it does not have the same folder properties that you would have in your normal machine. In your normal machine. Who is talking? In a normal machine. So here, this is just used to logically group your objects. Maybe you want to put all of them under one thing, you put them there, but it is not like a folder. So when you think about it, just see it as something that just helps you to organize your objects in a way that you can actually access them. But it is not like this is just a folder. You understand?
Okay. Yes.
But
thank you for
okay, good. But now when we get to visit the console, the S3 console, and then now we look at it, you'll see everything. We'll even do a small demo on just uploading a file and then improving that file and then re-uploading the file so that you guys can get this point better. But those were very good questions, Mark. Thank you for asking. Those were very, very good questions. Yes, Tony. S3 supports version control, and actually version control is part of what we will do in deep dive. Version control. Does it support version? Oh, there is something. What is the difference between version control and versioning? There is something in S3 that we call versioning. There is something in S3 that we call versioning. Let me see. Versioning. I'm looking at the documentation and version control. Version control S3 documentation. Tony, that's a good question. Okay, so there is a difference here between versioning and version control. So we are being told that versioning simply means keeping multiple copies or versions of a file, the way we've talked about, or a document or an object, often to track changes to recover older states. No, that is versioning. So you're keeping multiple copies of, you're keeping multiple copies of versions of a file or a document or object, often to track changes or recover older states. Older states means if you discover that maybe the current version has errors or the current version has problems, and this one you will see it mainly mainly when let's say you are hosting an application, and then you have used your version 1 of your version 1 is what is running, and then discover that it has a problem. You can always revert to an older version. You can always revert to an older version. Now, strictly when now we speak about S3, versioning allows you to keep previous versions of object in a bucket. The way we've done, we have V1, now we have V2. If a file is deleted or overwritten, you can restore an older version. We will also see that one during our deep dive, but it's also good just to mention it here. Then it protects against accidental deletion or unintended updates. So versioning is a feature that comes with S3, and you can say you can turn it on, and you'll see that when you go to the console, you can turn it on. When you turn it on, one of the things that it does, it also protects you. It protects you, or you as a person, you as a client, you as an organization, against accidental deletion or any unintended updates. You see. So an example that is provided here is you upload a report.pdf, and that is with a version ID 1, and then you upload a new report.pdf, same name, but now with a different version ID, the same thing we did. Then you accidentally delete, you can still recover. If you accidentally delete, let's say version 1 or version 2, you can do what? You can always recover. And even this time, I can just mention it again in passing, but you will see it when you do the deep dive. Versioning is meant for data protection and recovery. That's the work of data. That's the work of versioning. And then we also just to again answer Tony, when we look at version control is bigger, wider, and this is a broader system of managing changes of source code or documents used by developers to collaborate, track history, and manage updates. And some common tools we use for version control include Git, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. You see those ones: Git, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbuckets. So I remember during our introductory course, we had introduced you guys to a bit of version control, and we told you guys that you should set up your GitHub accounts. Just that when we get to that point where we now start working with code, we will already have had this version control system in place so that we can just jump into it. But I hope even in that comparison, Tony, you've been able to see the difference between the two. So we say S3 supports versioning. You see, S3 supports versioning. So there's a difference between version control and versioning, specifically when we are talking about S3. Hope that is clear. Now, okay, cool. Welcome, Tony. So we again, when we look at S3, remember we already say that S3, we are talking about buckets, and these buckets, when someone asks you what is a bucket, what is an S3 bucket, you can tell them that an S3 bucket is a logical container for object. It is what objects are put into. You can have one or more buckets in your account, and for each bucket, you can control access regarding who can create, delete, list objects in that bucket. Who can create, delete, or list objects in that bucket. Later on, we'll be doing something on, not today, but much later, we'll be doing something on access, identity, and access management. So you use identity and access management to define this, to define who has the authority to or permission to create, to delete, or to list objects in the bucket. You can view access logs for the bucket and its object, and you can choose the geographical region where S3 stores the bucket and its content. You have your S3. Then remember we talked about AWS infrastructure, or its geographical infrastructure, where we talked about the likes of the data centers, where we told you that data centers are found inside availability zones. Availability zones are found inside regions. So we are talking about those regions. So you can choose the region where you want your S3 bucket to store content. And then later on, again, when we'll be doing deep dive, you'll understand why it is important for you to store, let's say, for example, your objects closer to your users. and that is all a matter of latency. And then we'll also be talking about things like content delivery network. All that is supported by S3. So S3 is a big service, and we'll get to talk about it. So again, to upload your data, first you have to create a bucket in one of the AWS regions, and then upload any number of objects to the bucket. Remember what we said? The maximum size of an object is 5 TB, and the bucket in itself can hold unlimited number of objects. You can virtually store as many objects as you want within a bucket, and you can write, read, and delete objects in your bucket. A single object can be up to 5 TB in size. I normally say repetition is for emphasis. So remember that I've told you that that is examinable. Amazon S3 is designed to scale seamlessly and provide over 11 nines of durability. The data that you store in S3 is not associated with any particular server, and you don't need to manage any infrastructure yourself. Why? Because it's a managed service. A managed service, it means AWS takes care of everything else. You just bring your data, put it inside the bucket. Now, here are some features of S3 that you should pay attention to. Number one, you can virtually store as many objects as you want. Tumesema hiyo. By default, your data is private and you can optionally encrypt it. You know, encryption adds a layer of security to your data. Then data is stored redundantly. This is also important. And I mentioned this one, though I did not use that word. Redundant data storage in S3. So when you are talking about redundant data storage in S3, what we simply mean is your data is stored in multiple places, the way I told you, across several devices and facilities. And this ensures that when one component fails, your data will still be safe. Remember what we talked about? Yes, you sent your data, but now that data within that region is stored in different facilities and in different devices. You know, think of it this way. When you're talking about this, always remember the picture that we talked about at data center. First of all, the smallest unit, a data center. Then within that data center, we have smaller units. You know, we have racks. You know, so a rack might be having, one rack might be having a number of partitions where you have now stored your data there. Then this might to another rack, a different rack from this line. Maybe this line is served by this power supply, this network supply, and then this other one is served by a different one. Then outside of that data center, there's another data center that is connected to this one, also has its own racks, and then your data is replicated here and then replicated to another place. So now when AWS tells you that we are going to make sure that your data, the data that you entrust us to store for you, enjoys 11 nines of durability. That is how they manage it. You know, that's how they manage it. And we'll get to do this. We'll get to discuss this in more detail again when we go into the deep dive later on in the course. But right now, that in your mind, that two things: one, 11 nines of durability; two, data is stored redundantly. You know, three, maximum size of an object 5 TB. You understand? 4, you get that flexibility or that power to determine who can read, who can write, and who can delete that objects in your bucket. Then another point that you also need to have in your fingertips and understand it very well is that bucket names must be unique across all existing bucket names in Amazon S3. And here, just to make it very, very clear, is that bucket names must be unique across all S3 buckets globally. Inamaanisha, if there is an S3 bucket called my S3 bucket test, then you cannot name yours that way. You know, you cannot name yours that way. You have to name it differently. And when you are naming, and we'll see, I believe in the next slide or in the subsequent one, you will see that there are those naming conventions that we use when you are naming our buckets. So one of the things is, one thing that you need to know from this point here is that it is important for you to make sure that you give your S3 bucket a name that has not been used anywhere else. Good thing is, if you try to name it with a name, with an S3 bucket that already exists. Hata kama exist pale Iceland, ama exist Europe, somewhere in Europe or somewhere in South Africa, anywhere, it doesn't matter. Amazon, the console will give you an error message and tell you that that name has already been taken. So you are covered there. But just remember that for the purposes of exams, and also when you will be doing your labs, when you get that error, just change it. There are different tricks and tips that we will show you together with Joy on how to do this, on how to get a proper name for your S3 bucket. So these are just speaker notes, and and I saw that there are things that have been mentioned here that have not been mentioned in this. Just go through them. So the following are some key features. Number one, S3, Amazon S3 holds trillions of objects and regularly peaks at millions of requests per second. So requests are those reads and writes that are being directed to that S3 bucket. Those are the requests that we're talking about, reads and writes, you get. So Amazon S3 holds trillions of objects and regularly peaks at millions of requests per second. By default, none of your data is shared publicly, none. So AWS starts by making sure that everything is closed. You can also encrypt your data in transit and choose to turn on server-side encryption on your object. So you can turn on encryption, and again, we will just see that one, Juju. For now, we will see it when we get to that demo. You can turn it on, and then that one adds a layer of security. And then by default, data in S3 is stored redundantly across multiple facilities and multiple devices in each facility. That one, we've already talked about it. And then Amazon S3 also provides low latency access to the data over internet by either HTTP, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or secure HTTP, which is HTTPS. So you can retrieve data anytime from anywhere. You can retrieve data anytime from anywhere using either of those protocols. Then bucket names are universal. That's the point, and must be unique across all existing names in Amazon S3. So they are universal, they are global. So the name you've written here should not have been used by another bucket anywhere in the world, and must be unique. I'm belaboring that point because this is an examinable point, and you will meet it. You will meet it. I assure you, you'll meet that one. So let me make this one a bit bigger. We are going to look at the storage classes. Again, just know, I'll repeat, hizi vitu zenye tunafanya zote saizi, we are doing them high overview, and then we'll get deep later. But now, when you're talking about storage classes, we say Amazon S3 offers a range of object-level storage classes that are designed for different use cases. They're defined, they are designed for different use cases. And here, again, in terms of exams, you will get a scenario-based question, which tells you that organization this wants to do this, and then they ask you which S3 storage class is best suited for this use case. So you need to remember this, you need to remember these different storage classes, and then you need to remember where they are applied. So just as I mentioned, these are the storage classes that we have. We have Amazon S3 Standard. We have S3 Intelligent Tiering. Let me see if I can make it a bit bigger. Yeah, S3 Intelligent Tiering. Then we have S3 Standard Infrequent Access, or S3 Standard IA. Then we have S3 One Zone Infrequent Access, or S3 One Zone IA. Then we have Amazon Simple Storage Service Glacier, or S3 Glacier. And then we have S3 Glacier Deep Archive. You see, so those are six storage classes, and you can become a specialist in S3. You can become a specialist in S3. I have a friend working at the AWS Development Center, Nairobi, and his specialty is storage, S3. C, S3. So it means that if AWS can actually employ someone to just focus on supporting customers using S3, it means that this is a very important service. This is a very important service. And even for you guys who are doing it at a foundational level, it is important for you to get to understand what does S3 offer. So of all the things that we've discussed since we started to now we are going a bit deeper in our introduction, and now we want to look at these storage classes. So S3 offers a range of object-level storage classes that are designed for different use cases, as you've said. And now here, we are just going to read through these notes, and then I'll explain them briefly. Standard, S3 standard. So S3 standard is designed to provide high durability, high availability, and high performance object storage for frequently accessed data. High durability, high availability, high performance object storage for frequently accessed data because it delivers low latency and high throughput. Throughput, I had defined throughput somewhere here. Throughput. What do you understand by the word throughput? If you've met throughput before, in terms of tech, what does throughput mean? Anybody? Let me just read for you what I have here. I don't think that's just to go through the words. And then, so what is throughput? Throughput is the rate at which data is successfully transferred or processed over a given period of time. Rate at which data or data is successfully transferred or processed over a given period of time of time. Simply put, it measures how much data moves per second. Amount of data transferred per second between a service and its clients. Very nice, Leonard. Measured in MBs per seconds or GBs per seconds. It's about volume of data flow, not just the number of operations. Very, very nice. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Leonard. That is awesome. So, there is something that I also got, everyday analogy, throughput. How many cars pass a point per minute? Then, if you compare it with something like bandwidth, is how wide the road is, the maximum it can handle. And then latency, it is how long it takes a car, how long it takes a car to start, from start to finish. You have your highway, how many cars pass a given point. There's a point that you have marked per minute, so you're counting. And then bandwidth, how wide is the road? The maximum it can handle. Is it 2 cars or 3 cars going the same direction? 3, latency, how long it takes a car to go from the point that you have demarcated as your start to the finish. So throughput is about actual data flow, not just potential capacity. And I think Leonard has also told us that it's about volume of data flow, not just the number of operations. That is very, very important. So in S3, throughput means how fast you can read and write data to your bucket. So that is what throughput is. How fast you can read and write data to your bucket. So when we say that it delivers low latency and high throughput, that is what it means. Amazon S3 is appropriate for many use cases. Now, this is where you pay attention again. The use cases can include cloud applications, dynamic websites, content distribution, mobile and gaming application, and big data analytics. All this, you can use S3 to support all of these applications or use cases that we've talked about. Those are cloud applications, dynamic websites, content distribution, mobile and gaming applications, and big data. You'll be surprised to learn that very big companies, the likes of Netflix, are using S3. They're using S3 to make sure that they can deliver the movies to us. They can deliver the movies to us, people who are eager and waiting to see the next release of a given movie or series. So, next class is S3 Intelligent Tiering. And as the name suggests, This is designed to optimize cost. This storage class is designed to optimize cost. It automatically your data to the most cost-effective access tier without affecting performance or operational overhead. You know, as it is moving it, it moves it. And when you're talking about these tiers are actually those storage classes that we talked about, the 6 storage classes. So what intelligent tiering does, it moves your data from one tier to the next, depending on the access pattern that it has established. It has already looked and seen that actually this is how frequently this data is accessed. And then it now moves it. It now moves it to the different tiering. Yes, CDN is just part of Leonard. CDN is part of the services that work in collaboration with the S3. And we will see that one. We'll see that one specifically. You've seen in the standard. We've talked about content distribution, and CDN in full is actually a content distribution network. So I hope you are seeing that relationship. And again, going back to the example that I've just given about Netflix. Netflix uses a combination of CDN, content delivery network, and S3. So one thing that also CDNs do, and we will see other services that also help with the CDN, they help also in caching, so that access to data, frequently accessed data, can be accessed faster by end users, thereby reducing the likes of latency. I hope that makes sense. So, for a small monthly monitoring and automation fee per object, S3 monitors access patterns of the objects in the S3 intelligent tiering class. It then moves the objects that haven't been accessed for 30 consecutive days to the infrequent access tier. Infrequent access tier. If an object in the infrequent access tier is accessed, it is automatically moved back to frequent access tier or standard. And then the Amazon S3 intelligent tiering storage class doesn't charge retrieval fee when you use it. That's good news. It does not charge you retrieval fee when you use it. So what it charges you here is that it charges you that small fee for it to be able to read your access patterns and be able to move. But when now you are retrieving your files, it does not charge you a fee. Also, it doesn't charge additional fees when objects are moved between access tiers. You see, it also does not charge you additional fees when objects are moved across or between access tiers. It works well for long-lived data with access patterns that are unknown or unpredictable. Another examinable question. You'll be asked, or you'll be given a use case. You'll be given a scenario, and you're told that that startup ABCD or organization ABCD has approached you to advise them on the most appropriate S3 class, and then they tell you that this is their use case. Okay, no, this is their access pattern. They don't know. The data they have has infrequent. Sorry. The data that they have, or what they have stored, they don't know the access pattern for it. They don't know its access pattern. They don't know if it will be frequently accessed or infrequently accessed. Then they ask you which is the most suitable or the most cost-effective storage class. There you have it, S3 intelligent tiering. And what have we said about S3 intelligent tiering? You are only charged a small fee that allows that storage class to determine or to look at your access pattern and then make it possible for it to move your data between different access tiers based on what? Based again on the established access pattern. And we have said that it is good for what? The best use case for S3 intelligent tiering is for long-lived data with access patterns that are unknown or unpredictable. Unknown or unpredictable. And I told you that when you're reading an exam question or when you're doing your cases, when you read those questions, look at the keywords. Keywords will help you with eliminating answers that are obviously wrong, and then you settle for those answers that come very, very close to what is right, and then you finally get to the right answer. Hope that helps. Then, next class is S3 standard infrequent access. S3 standard infrequent access. I remember when I was doing restart, we were told that the easiest way to remember or distinguish some of these, someone is doing majab on my screen. Who is writing on my screen? So we were told that one of the easiest ways to understand the difference between infrequent access, the easiest way to remember the standard tier is to call it a frequent access tier. That is where you have your files that are frequently accessed. But now infrequent access is the opposite of standard tier. Once you have known that, it helps you even to, it also helps you actually to remember S3 standard IA. Now, Amazon standard IA storage class is used for data that is accessed less frequently, but requires rapid access when needed. Less frequently, but requires rapid access when needed. Again, less frequently accessed data that requires rapid access when needed. So when you are doing your notes, these are the keywords that you need to write down just to help you remember. And when you meet them in exam, you will know that they're talking about infrequent access tier. This class is suitable for data that is accessed less frequently. That's number one. But in as much as they are accessed less frequently, they require rapid access when needed. That is very, very important. That is very, very important. So Amazon S3 standard IA is designed to provide high durability, high throughput, and low latency, same as what you get in standard S3 standard. You see, I already told you what throughput is. So this combination of low cost and high performance makes S3 standard IA a good choice for long-term storage and backup. So long-term storage and backup. Thus, it also works well. It also works well as data store for disaster recovery files. No. So umepata mpaka use case ya S3 standard IA. So the use case here, we are told that it is suitable for long-term storage, backup, and disaster recovery files. So when you're defining S3 infrequent access, you start by saying what it is used for. Access, it is used for data that is accessed less frequently, but requires rapid access when needed. And then you now come to the use cases. The combination of low cost and high performance makes it suitable for what? Long-term storage, backup, and disaster recovery files. Disaster recovery files. So also put that one in your notes. Very, very important. We move on to S3 one zone infrequent access. Now, again, to help you remember, thank you, Mark, for that suggestion. To help you remember, just know that you can actually compare S3 one frequent again now with S3 standard infrequent. And they have a very, very simple distinction between the two. Amazon S3 one zone IA is for data that is accessed less frequently, requires rapid access when needed, similar to what we saw with standard IA. Now, the difference here is that unlike other S3 storage classes, which store data in at least 3 availability zones. Now, all those other storage classes that we talked about, including those that are below what we are talking about right now, they all store data in at least what? In at least 3 availability zones. And we talked about what availability zones are, so you guys know. S3 one zone, you see, one zone IA stores data in one availability zone. So it costs less than S3 standard IA for the obvious reason that it only stores data in one zone, you see, or S3 standard IA. One sec. I think I have. Okay, it costs less than Amazon S3 standard IA, Amazon S3, and then we say Amazon S3 one zone IA works well for customers who want lower cost option for infrequently accessed data, but do not require the availability and resilience of standard S3, of S3 standard or S3 standard IA. You see, so high availability, when you hear about high availability, just think of multiple availability zones. And then resiliency. Resiliency means in case kikiumana, you can always get your data from one of those availability zones, because if one is down, the other two are still running, because you've been told that all the other storage classes do what? They store your data in 3 availability zones. So what are we seeing here? What are we seeing here? We are seeing that our S3 standard S3 one zone IA, it is the only storage class that we have in S3 that only stores your data in one availability zone. No, in one availability zone. And it does that because the customer has chosen, they have chosen to prioritize cost over resiliency and availability. And the kind of data that is stored here is similar to the one that is stored in the other S3 standard infrequent access, meaning that this is data that is less frequently accessed, but when accessed, it requires to be accessed very, very fast. So those trade-offs, the trade-off between cost, resiliency, and availability are things that customers have an option to choose. Have an option to choose. When you're working with a customer and you're trying to understand their pain point and their use cases, it is important for them to be aware that should you choose, let's say this, you are choosing this, yes, it will give you the benefit of low cost, but at the expense of you are not assured of availability, of high availability and resiliency. And like any other storage class, this storage class also has use cases that are fit for it. For instance, here we are told it is a good choice for storing secondary backup choices of on-prem data or easily recreatable data. You see, a good choice for storing secondary backup copies of on-prem data or easily recreatable data. So you can also use it as a cost-effective storage for data that is replicated from another AWS region. Data that is replicated from another AWS region by using S3 cross-region replication. So there is also that aspect of region-to-region replication, as in data that you have. Let me use an example of US East 1 as a region. US East 1 as a region, and then you replicate it to US West. You can replicate it to US West. That is another region, from region to region, so cross-region replication. And again, in terms of cross-region replication, there are benefits that comes with it, and there are reasons why organizations choose to do cross-region replication. One of them is just to make sure that data is close to the end users, thereby reducing latency. And all this, you'll see it when we do the deep dives later on in week 6. Now, moving on swiftly to our next. Amazon Simple Storage Service Glacier, or Amazon S3 Glacier. This is a secure, durable, and low-cost storage class for archiving. Data archiving. Unajua archive ni kustore kitu, kuweka kitu yenye it is not actively being used, so you push it to archive. So you can reliably store virtually any amount of data at costs that are competitive with or cheaper than on-prem solutions using this service. To keep costs low, but suitable for varying needs, S3 Glacier provides 3 retrieval options that range from a few minutes to hours. You can upload objects directly to Amazon S3 Glacier, as in you don't even need to go through standard or through any other storage class. You can just push it straight to S3 Glacier for archival storage. Now, again, we've talked about different retrieval options. Those ones are not ours to be concerned with right now. Those ones will do them for deep dive. Here we're just introducing you to the storage classes. High overview. high overview. Now, Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Dive. Deep dive. Not a deep dive, guy. I think I missed to say deep dive here. So I meant to say that you will meet these retrieval options. Sorry, you will meet these retrieval options in greater details when we'll be doing our S3 deep dive. That's where the deep dive was supposed to go. That aside, now here we are talking about Deep Archive. Sorry, Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive. So, Deep Archive is the lowest cost storage class for S3. Lowest cost storage class for S3. That is Glacier Deep Archive. It supports long-term retention and digital preservation for data that might be accessed once or twice a year. Look at that access pattern. Might be accessed once or a year. That's a point to note. It is designed for customers, particularly in highly regulated industries such as financial services, healthcare, and public sector. These customers typically retain datasets for 7 to 10 years or more to meet regulatory compliance requirements. So the customers we are talking about are those in public sector, healthcare, and financial services. So they are required by law to retain datasets for periods of between 7 to 10 years or more for the purposes of meeting regulatory compliance requirement. So Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive is a cost-effective and easy to manage alternative to the likes of magnetic tape systems, whether these tape systems are on-prem libraries or off-prem services. All objects that are stored in S3 Glacier Deep Archive are replicated and stored across at least 3 geographically dispersed availability zones. Geographically dispersed availability zones. These objects can be restored. They can be restored within 12 hours. The objects stored in this storage class can be restored within 12 hours. So things like how long it takes to restore, things like how long it takes to restore objects in a storage class. That is also something that you need to make a note of, because that can also feature in your exam. And then the same way I told you guys before, anytime you want to go deep into a service, the best place to do it is to read its documentation. And AWS has written a very good and comprehensive documentation on S3. So I invite you to go and read through it in case you'd like to know more about S3. But again, don't go too deep, because we'll be doing a good deep dive later in the course. And you guys will be S3 pros by the time we are done with that deep dive. So here are some of the ways in which you can access your data that is stored in your S3 bucket. One of them is through the AWS Management Console. Another one is through AWS CLI. Another one is through AWS SDKs. SDKs are software development kits. And then, of course, you can also use REST endpoints to access your data. So those are 4 main ways in which you can use to access your data. Just make a mental note on that. Yes, so for REST-based endpoints which support HTTP or HTTPS access, so you can also use REST endpoints. So again, that was just a mention. Let me see, where are we at? We are at, just a second, 8 of 15. Let me see something here. Tendency mystery. Just a sec. Yeah, I know, Mark. I know, Mark. The links are not clickable, but the easiest hack that you can do, just go to Google and just write S3 AWS S3 documentation. And then here it is. You see this Amazon Simple Storage Service documentation. When you click it, it will open the documentation for you. So that is how you look for any documentation and make sure that it is the one written by AWS. I've shared the link on the chat for anyone that would like to click on it. So let me see. What is our time? Where are we at? It's 10. It's 10. It's 10. It's 10. It's 10. It's 10. So, okay. So we continue with our lesson ever so slightly. Go to. Yes. Okay. So we looked at the access patterns. All right. Now, Amazon S3 bucket and object URL structure. Amazon S3 bucket and object URL structure. Let me just get my sandbox running. It takes time for it to run, so let me just have it running first, because I'll need to show you a few things about that S3. I just want to show you how it looks like. Let me have it running. I hope you guys took some time to go through this sandbox environment just to familiarize yourself with it and see how it looks like. I've clicked on start. Let it just do that on the background as we continue with our lesson, then we'll revisit. So Amazon S3 bucket and object URL structure. So we have our bucket here. This is our bucket, and you give it a unique name. And then you are storing a couple of things inside it. Maybe you have a music file, you have some files, some documents, you have some videos. You are storing them inside your bucket. And then that bucket will have a URL, a unique resource locator. That is what URL is in full, unique resource locator. So it is https:// and then this is your region code, the region in which you have created this bucket, and then amazonaws.com/ the name of the bucket that you've given your bucket. If you call it, for example, someone suggests for us a bucket name hapo kwa chat. Suggest a bucket name hapo kwa chat. I'm giving you an opportunity to earn some, how do you call it? Engagement points. Someone suggest a bucket name hapo kwa chat. Atinda one. Daniel, you want to put us in problems, eh? Daniel. Let me see. Okay, I'm seeing just a bucket. I'm seeing Kenai 153. I'm seeing Pinky Ponky, Pakamelo Disco. Which one do we go with? Atimuziki. Hey, Gideon. All right. So, because mmesema wengi, am going to pick. Okay, let's use Kenai 150, Kenai 53. Thank you guys for that engagement. So we say, for example, this is our bucket. We are creating this bucket, and then we have that bucket name. Let me see if my environment is ready. Where was it? Not yet. This one is taking forever, but okay. Let it just continue to spin till it finishes. Then, once you already have your bucket, you have the region code and the bucket name. Then now we are looking at the object that we've stored inside the bucket. So the object will have this URL, https:// this first bit here is your region code, amazon.com, amazonaws.com/ your bucket name will feature here, and then the name of the file. You know, the unique name that you've named your file. We say that this name will act as a key. That one we said in our notes. I hope you guys remember. So that will be that. This one, okay, it is ready. Let's see if it will open for us something that we can see. Let's see. So for those who are new and have not gotten a chance to go through that, just to look at that sandbox environment, this is how your AWS console looks like. Basically, this is how your AWS console looks like. And then we have this hamburger menu here. When you click it, it shows you your console home, and you can click this to get all the services. And these are the services that we have within our AWS console, or these are some of the services that are offered. And then you can see that the services are categorized according to what they do, like for game development, IoT, end user computing, analytics, developer tools, customer engagement, blockchain, satellite, machine learning, storage, containers, databases. And now you know what we are doing right now is storage, and that is S3. So you can access S3 from here. You can click this and open S3, or you can come in this search bar and then type S3. You know, this is the easiest way to get access to anything that you want, any service that you want. Just type S3 there. You get your S3, click on it. Let us see how S3 looks like. So what happens is that once you click on that, it takes you to the S3 management console, Consolia S3. So this is how Consolia S3 looks like. This is our S3, and you can see they're inviting you here to create a bucket. So Amazon S3 store and retrieve any amount of data from anywhere. Let us see. Where is my share button? Let me stop sharing and then reshare. I want to share with the sound.
Companies need to manage.
So someone confirm to me if you can hear and see the video. Kama nasikia sauti from my end. Umesikia?
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Clinton Pia. Okay,
Companies need to manage massive amounts of data in a secure and cost-effective way, but complex, siloed, and costly storage solutions can slow innovation. Amazon S3 is cloud object storage that delivers industry-leading scalability, data availability, security, and performance. Use Amazon S3 to store and retrieve any amount of data at any time from anywhere. With Amazon S3, you can store data across a range of storage classes based on your workload's performance, data access, resiliency, and cost requirements. S3 storage classes provide the lowest cost storage for different access patterns and the most durable storage in the cloud, designed to exceed 11 nines of data durability. Its flexible management features enable you to organize your data, control access, realize cost efficiencies, enforce security, and meet compliance requirements. S3 also delivers unmatched security, compliance, and audit capabilities to help ensure your data is protected. Millions of customers of all sizes and industries use Amazon S3 to store and protect any amount of data for virtually any use case, such as data lakes, generative AI, cloud-native applications, analytics, and backup and archival. Start your AWS journey today.
Awesome, 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 awesome. So that was that. That was a very good introduction to what S3 does, and it gives us a very good summary of what we've covered. Gives us a very good summary of what we have covered so far. So this is S3. So this is the console for S3, and this is where you get to create your buckets and then manage all your buckets from this point. So remember what we talked about, and I told you guys that when it comes to accessing S3, there are like 4 different ways that you can access. One of them is through the management console, which we have right here. And then there is CLI. We will do CLI later on in the course when we now show you guys how you can actually configure your, let's say, for example, your preferred IDE, be it VS Code or whichever. And then you can now configure it and make it connect it to your AWS account, and then download CLI. Once you've downloaded CLI and configured your VS Code, for example, you'll now be able to communicate directly with your account programmatically through the CLI. And then there's a third way that we said it is through SDKs. And I believe also in the process of time, we'll also get to tinker with SDK kidogo. And then finally, there is through REST API. So this is the console, and this is how you access your S3 through the console. I said, step 1, log into your AWS account, or now that you are using the lab environment, log into the lab environment, and then up here, you can type the name of the service. Once you type the name of the service, you open it, it opens its own console within the AWS management console, and now you'll be able to interact with the service. So there are many things that you can get here, like you can create a bucket. You can look at the pricing, and you see we have the pricing calculator already offered for you there. And then you have the user guide, how to use. Then we have API references, frequently asked questions, discussion forum, S3 on AWS news blog. AWS has a blog called the news blog, where any new or any new service improvement, or if they are planning to do a service improvement, they also announce it there. They also announce it there in that news blog. So it's very good place for you to read. Then common tasks here is get started with S3, create a bucket, upload an object, download an object, host a static website. This is one of those things that we really want you people to do as your first project, just to show that you really understood S3. After the deep dive, you can host a static website, maybe even create a static website with your CV, host it in the cloud. We'll show you guys how to navigate things to do with cost, so that now when an employer, for example, asks you for your CV, you give them the link to your static website, and you know that one already speaks to them and shows them, by this guy already knows what they are doing because they are already hosting something in the cloud. You understand? I hope that one makes sense. So the benefits are written there, the use cases are written there, the case studies, and again, case studies are also very good, especially for the curious. And for those who just want to get a deeper understanding, case studies can really help you, because through case studies, you get to see how big organizations are using a service that you're currently learning at Foundation. So when you get to know that, let's say as a company like NASDAQ is already using S3 to do A, B, C, D, then you can also picture yourself maybe one day working for NASDAQ. Or one day working for Nokia, one day working for this other company that is already using it, and you see how they are using it, you see. And by doing these case studies, it will help you even to solidify your understanding of how that service works. Then there are services here that you're told they are related to S3. You can see them here, and you can just get to see how these services work with them. And some of them we will cover them, as I already mentioned CloudFront. We will cover most of these ones later when you do the deep dive. So this is the console. And let us move on to the next step and just create a bucket. Create a bucket. All this will take you through when you are doing the deep dive, but here I just want to do something high overview. So we are going to create a general purpose bucket, and we say that we are going to name it as Kenai 53, for example. And then copy settings. If you have a bucket already that you want to copy its setting, you can choose this, but no, we don't have a bucket, so we'll leave that one as is. Object ownership, all object buckets are owned by this account. Access to this bucket and its object is specified using only policies, so we'll leave it as is, will not touch anything. Then by default, again from our notes, we say that public access is blocked by default by AWS. So we will leave it blocked for now. We'll leave it blocked. And then now when we start doing stuff that we want guys to be able to access, we'll be able to see how we can do that one later. Then bucket versioning. Remember, someone asked us about versioning. So versioning is a means of keeping multiple variants of an object in the same bucket. You can use versioning to preserve, retrieve, and restore every version of every object stored in your S3 bucket. Versioning, with versioning, you can easily recover from both unintended user actions and application failures, and you can learn more from there. So we'll also leave the versioning disabled for now because this is just demo. And then you can tag, you use tags to track storage cost and organize buckets. So we can tag. Tagging is a good practice. We are not going to tag this, but tagging is a very good practice also, just to help you see these are the resources. Let's say, for example, this account is shared. You know, this single account can be an organizational account shared across different departments. We have HR, we have accounting, we have devs, we have operations team. So we have different people that are sharing this account. So it's important to know which of these different areas is generating the cost that you are getting, so that you can see if it is a valid cost or not. So that's one of the things that you can do, which is very, very important. That is very important. Then encryption type. By default, we are going to stick with server-side encryption. Again, we'll talk about encryption when we'll be doing the deep dive, so no worry about that. Bucket key, using an S3 key. Okay, again, this one you're also going to leave it as is. Advanced settings, there are a couple of things here. We are not going to touch anything. We'll just leave it as is, and then just move on and do what? Create our bucket. So we have clicked on create bucket. So let's see. So successfully created bucket Kenai 53. So we have created a bucket called Kenai 53, and here is our bucket. You can see it here. And where have we created it? In which region? We have created it in US West, Oregon, commonly known as US West 2. That's where we have created. And how do you determine the region to create your bucket? You come up here, and then you can change to any region that you want. You can change to any region. Let's say, for example, we shift to US East. That is US East 2, I believe. Let me see. Yes, US East 2. US East 2. So we have shifted to US East 2. And when you go to US East 2, you can see our bucket. Our bucket, the one that we created in US West 1, we can see it here. But we can see it here because I told you that S3 is a global service, but has a specific region where it has been created, and you can actually see it here. And just to help you guys see it better, I'm going to create another bucket and call it Kenai 54 in this current region. So let's call this one Kenai 54, and then we leave everything as is. We did not change anything, so we leave everything as is, and then we just create the bucket. Let's create that bucket. There you go, successfully created. And now you can clearly see here, we have two buckets. We have Kenai 53 created in US West 2, and then we have Kenai 54 created in US East 2. So what I've just demonstrated here is by choosing, you choose the region where you want to create your bucket. The bucket has to be created in a specific region, but it can be accessed globally. You know, it can be accessed globally. And another thing that I also want to show you, again, I want to try and create another bucket in a different region, not the same region, a different region. Let's go to Oregon. Oh, no, we were already at Oregon. Let's go to North Carolina, or even let's go to Europe. Let's go to Frankfurt. That name, where? Let's go to that one. Okay, let's go to Frankfurt and try and create Kenai 53 and see what we are, if we'll be able to create it there. So create, you see our buckets are still visible. Create, and then we are going to create what? Kenai 53. Okay, Kenai 53. And then we leave everything as is and then try creating the bucket. See, bucket with the same name already exists. And not just because it's in my account, anywhere. If I was doing it with you, if I told you now, go and try in your account and create a bucket with this name, it will refuse. You know, it will refuse because someone has already created a bucket with that name. So that is that. That is that. That is that. So, let's go back to our buckets. And now I want to use the one that is in Oregon. So let's go to Oregon. So this is Oregon. Now, here we are. So I'll open this bucket. That is the bucket. And you can see the bucket has nothing in it. And now I'm going to do, let me just download a simple images. Download a simple picture. So let me download this one, save image as. Desktop, save. Okay, so I've saved it to my desktop. I don't like that. Okay, I hope itakata upload. Let's just try. You may download kama WebP. So let's go back to our bucket and try to upload a file. Let's try and upload a file. So we are going to upload a file, add a file. Then we are going to upload it from the desktop. There it is. So that is our file. This is how I've named it, and it's a WebP. This is the format of the file. So let's upload it and see. Let's upload it and see. So they are saying that the file has been uploaded. So that file has been uploaded, and you can see this is the bucket where it is. That's the bucket where it is, and this is the file. So the file in itself, let's see. I'm trying to look at its metadata. See, now it tells you who the owner is, the region in which it has been uploaded, the last modified, size, the type, and this is the key. This is the key for the file. You know, this is the key for the file, or the unique name for the file, the identifier for the file, and this is the object URL. You see, this is the object URL. Let me see if I can access it myself. Here, access denied. See, access denied. It is not supposed to be accessed over the internet because we blocked access. Remember, we blocked access for that. So first things first, before when we look at resolving that first I have too many things open. Yeah. So first things first, the object URL. This is the object URL that we discussed in class. I told you you'll see HTTPS. Then we have the name of the file or the key of the file. That's what we are having here. So the name of the file .s3 dot the region. This is our region. And then we have Amazon AWS.com. And then now finally, hapa mwisho kabisa, sorry. This is not the name of the file. This is the bucket name. Bucket name, the name of the file comes at the end. Yes, the name of the file comes at the end. So we have the bucket name. It's an S3 bucket. Then this is our region, Amazon.com, AmazonAWS.com. Then the key that we have here. So that is that. So you have seen clearly here that we were not able to access this file because we had blocked public access. We had blocked public access to that. Go to permissions and you'll see this bucket has the bucket owner enforced settings applied to object ownership. You see. So there are things that we have enforced here that makes it important for anybody to try to access our files, to access our objects from anywhere, from anywhere. We can change this and make it public, though that is not the best, how do you call it? It's not best practice. Best practice is not just to go and, let's say, for example, we go back to our bucket. Let me open it elsewhere. We go back to our bucket. And then in our bucket, we go to permissions and then we decide that we are going to change it to allow, there are things that we call policies and we'll show you how to write those policies later. Policies under permissions. We'll show you how to do that one later. But now, here I want to try something. Block all public access. Let's edit this and remove that and see if we'll have a change. You confirm. Let's see if we'll have a change. Confirm. So settings successful. So the same URL. Let us try and see what's saying. Still access is denied because of why? Let me see something. I think I'll need to define policies. I'll need to define a policy that makes this one available. Just a second, properties. Let me copy that. Let me try incognito. My attempt does not appear to have any style information stated in the documentary is shown below. Access denied. Let me troubleshoot something for a second. Kuna mtu ananiambia kitu kwa chat. Muziki when calling. Okay, that's unfortunate to learn how to use. No. It is not unfortunate. Ah. Oh. Okay. But I did not. Sorry, I did not even think about it. Yes. The sandbox environment has got a lot of it has a lot of restrictions, and that's why we decided with Joy that maybe by around week there's a time that we will try and see the practicability of us introducing you guys to opening your own accounts. And as promised, again, we'll also give you what? We'll also give you, how do you call it? We'll also give you guardrails on how you can make sure that you don't incur spend. So I'm going to stop this pursuit for now, but we'll do that deep dive. The most important thing is that I've shown you how to upload, how to name. Those are the things that we're supposed to do in our introduction. So maybe when we'll be demonstrating how to access and how to set the policies and permissions, we'll use our own. I have my personal, not one, I think I have like 3 AWS accounts. I use them for different reasons. And I believe Joy also has her own account or accounts that we will use for that. But at least you have seen that. If you have learned something in terms of uploading and naming the file, let me see some thumbs up. Let me see some thumbs up. No, Salem, we cannot give you access because those access are given by AWS and they define, they specifically define what you are supposed to do. So that's where we are at. Thank you, Felix. I've seen your thumbs up. Is that Felix or Belinda? Ah, Belinda, thank you. Thank you for that. I was reading some chat here. But that is good. That is good. So that is that. Let us go back to our notes. I think that was a good detour. That was a good detour. Notes zangu zimeenda hapi. Yes. So I have shown you this. You've seen this. You have seen this. You have seen this. And you have seen the console. So again, I invite you to read through this note. It's the same thing that we've been talking about and even demonstrated it. Now, when you talk of redundancy in S3, redundancy in S3, I'm trying to think where to give you guys a break. Fanya redundancy. Yeah, we will take a pause. We'll take a short pause at S3 pricing. Wacha tufanye easy slide start, then we'll take a short pause so that you guys can stretch. I know it's a lot, but our focus here is to make sure that you guys mnashika chenye tunafunza. So pia we don't overwhelm you. So redundancy in S3, how data is redundantly stored in S3. This one we discussed it in our notes, where I told you that once you upload your document, the same way that I've uploaded these ones that you see here, it is the same way that they are showing us here, and the way we have uploaded our own, we have uploaded our own document in that S3 bucket. What happens? It is that it is replicated across different devices in different facilities within the same region. Within the same region. And by region, I mean, like you see in our case, we did a bucket called Kenai 53 in Oregon, I believe. And then we did another one in North Virginia. You see? North Virginia. Yeah. So this is how replication, this is how redundancy is achieved, by copying what you have uploaded across different facilities in different devices, such that, let's say, for example, this facility goes down, these other two will still have the copies of your data that you can always access, therefore allowing you the enjoyment of the 11 nines of durability that is promised by AWS. Yes, so the notes there, those speaker notes are self-explanatory. Then seamless scaling. Amazon S3 is designed for seamless scaling. What does that mean? It means that, one, you have, first of all, uploaded your documents here. And then those documents, you can see we have Hello World 1, Hello World 2, Hello World 3, Hello World 4. So you can keep on updating and just adding them to your S3 bucket. As long as you can see here, the names are different. You see, the Usipate Historia, that file already exists, so it is named differently. So your S3 bucket can do that. Now, sorry, Amazon S3 automatically manages the storage behind your bucket even when your data grows. Because of this system, you can get started immediately and have your data storage grow with your application needs. So you might have, like the way we saw in the preceding slides, we said that there are different use cases that you can use the S3 service for. So if you're using it, let's say for cloud application, and then this application is growing, and then more and more data is getting stored in your S3 bucket, S3 has that capacity of handling. Handling, because you said that you can store almost virtually limited amount of data. So you don't need to provision the storage or throughput. You don't need to provision the storage or throughput, and you are billed for only what you use. So when we get to pricing, you will see how S3 is billed, or how you pay for S3. But maybe let's look at the common use cases first. So the common use cases for S3 is storage for application assets, static website hosting, backup and disaster recovery, and staging area for big data. So big data, you know that big data is a lot of data. There's a lot of data that's being generated by these different applications, like let's say IoT devices. So all this data that is being collected from different places, let's say it's pictures from cameras, they are being stored there. You see, maybe traffic light, traffic cameras are capturing data, and then this is being stored in the S3 bucket to be consumed by maybe other applications or used by other applications. So static website hosting, this one we talked about when I told you guys that it's our desire that by the time we are done with the deep dive, you guys maybe will host something in your static website hosting and then take it out there and then just share it with the public for people to learn and see what you guys are already doing. And you can even host your CV on a static website and then share that with your potential employer. That will be a very good thing to do. And then of course, backup and disaster recovery, that is self-explanatory. Staging area for big data. So data is stored in this S3 bucket, which holds it as a staging area, and then other applications can consume that S3 from that S3 bucket. Now, the flexibility flexibility to store a virtually unlimited amount of data and to access that data from anywhere makes S3 suitable for various scenarios, as we have discussed above. As a location for any application data, S3 provides a shared location for storing objects that any instance of your application can access. These instances might include applications on EC2 or Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, or even traditional servers. These features can be useful for user-generated media files, server logs, or other files that your application must store in a common location. Also, because the content can be fetched directly over the web, your application doesn't need serve that content. Your application doesn't need serve that content. Clients can directly fetch the data themselves from S3. No, that's where we talk about allowing permissions through policies, for example, for let's say, for example, clients to be able to download data or fetch data from your S3 bucket. For static web hosting, S3 buckets can serve your website static content, including hypertext markup language, HTML, cascading style sheets, CSS, JavaScript, and other files. And we will show you this when we will be doing the deep dive, the static web hosting, where you can take your website with its index.html, with its CSS, style.css, and JavaScript files, if any, and put them together and just have them running from that storage. So at least you've been able to host a website, and that's a very good achievement. That's a very, very good achievement. The high durability of S3 makes it a good candidate to store backup of your data. You always want your data, especially the backups, to be available and to be durable. For even greater availability and disaster recovery capability, Amazon S3 can even be configured to support cross-region replication. Data that is put into an S3 bucket in one region can be automatically replicated to another S3 region if you have set cross-region replication option on. So in Amanisha, the data that you put into, let's say, US Oregon, can be replicated to Frankfurt or to North Virginia if you have toggled that setting on. Then you might have data that you plan to analyze by using various big data tools like Hadoop, etc. The scalable storage and performance of Amazon S3 make it a good candidate for staging or long-term storage of this data. Because it's usually straightforward to store and access data with S3, you might use it frequently with other AWS services and for other parts of your application. That one makes sense. So you just put your data in S3 and then all the other applications can consume data from there. I saw a question. Someone asked a very good question somewhere. Let me see. Someone had asked about when creating a when creating a bucket in S3, must one create it in the same region as the VPC? Not necessarily. Not necessarily because the bucket is a global service, and buckets, when we do an architecture is a drawing mapping our AWS services and how they relate to each other or how they communicate to each other. You will discover that S3 is never placed inside a VPC. S3 is outside a VPC. It's outside a VPC. So meaning that it is possible to have S3, to have an S3 in one region communicating to a VPC in a different region. That is very, very possible. That can happen. That can happen. But if you want to put it in the same region, there's no harm to that. The only thing is just note that S3 are never placed inside a VPC. Zinakuanga nje ya VPC. And when you'll be looking at our VPCs, let me see. Yeah, when you'll be looking at our VPCs, you'll actually see those architecture diagrams and how they are done. So that was a good question, Gideon. Yes, Gideon, that was a good question. So we've talked about those. Now, before we go into pricing, we will do pricing and then do the takeaways. We'll do the pricing and the takeaways. I want to give you guys a break. This is a good place to give a break. Let me see. Because after pricing, we will do the takeaways, and then there is something else that I want us to do before we go to do our cases. There is a small video that we will watch together. I've decided to play that video. It is part of this content. However, it will be replayed again. We'll be doing the deep dives because there are some concepts that are covered there that are actually, they belong to week 6. I've already heard it myself, but it's important for you to listen to it. So let's take a breather. A breather for you guys to stretch. Bathroom break. This is the best time for you to do it. Let us reconvene in 7 minutes at 10:50. 10:50, we will reconvene and continue at 10:50. Oh, this is the main break, 10:50. No, let us meet at 11. So do your, how do you call it? Top up your tea or the beverage that you are having, stretch. Kama kuna jua penye yuko, you can remove your head nje kidogo, takajua kidogo, then come back at 11 sharp, then we continue. Thank you.
Patrick, before I break, I have a friend, amejaribu kujoin the link that was shared for Canva. So when he tries to click on it, inamuuliza the code. Sasa ajui hata ataanzia wapi. Last week he wasn't able to join the sessions.
What is the name of your friend?
Anaitwa Roy. Ni Roy nani?
Roy.
Yeah, Roy Kiprotich.
Roy Kiprotich. Just a second. So, Canva ndo ameshinda kujoin na classes ana join.
No, nilimtumia link morning but naona kama yuko online. Ni kama hajajoin bado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mwambie aingie class, and then because this break is short, over lunchtime damsot. See, you have my number.
Yeah, I do.
Give him my number and then tell him to chat me on WhatsApp, then I will sort him over lunchtime. Anajua kwa nini gani? Whether anajua kukenai gani?
Ajui.
Yeah. Canva ndo ingemwambia. Just a second. Joy, uko area? Chaniangalia. Anaitwa Roy.
Yes, Patrick.
Mambo.
Poa sana. How are you guys?
I am good. We are trying to ask a question about this. There's a guy called Roy anasema Canva yake nampatia shida. Do you have a student
Roy.
by that name? Roy.
Roy, have you
Roy
been coming to class?
Roy Kiprotich. Anaitwa Roy Kiprotich. Last week he
Amekuwa
wasn't able
akikuja
to
class?
join. No, last week hakujoin. He wasn't able to join last week.
Yes, that's why alitolewa.
Oh,
Yes.
alitoa.
Is he willing to join the classes fully and commit?
I don't know. Sijui hapo sasa.
We will
All right,
need
just
that
tell
before
him.
readmitting him. We'll need to know
Okay.
that.
Yes.
Sindio, Joy?
Yes. Tell him someone from Landley is coming to, we'll reach out to him.
Okay, it's okay.
All right.
Hi, Joy.
Yes, Mohammed.
Sasa
Poa sana.
kwani mtu anang'olewa from class after chemistry classes ngapi?
Yes. So you remember tuliwaambia attendance, cases and labs and your engagements huwa zinaangaliwa on a daily basis every class.
Okay.
Unaona? So if you miss a class and haujaambia mtu or you have not done your cases and tukiangalia grade book tunaona you've not done any KC or you're far back on your cases and we're trying to reach out to you and we cannot see an improvement or you're not committing, we'd rather give someone who is willing to learn that opportunity. Okay. So kuna watu wenye like hawakuweza kuja last week classes, this week hawatakuwa na sisi cause washatolewa, because that commitment is what we need from you. It's the only thing that you're paying with. So the person who has sponsored you wants to see if you're fully committed, pesa yake haitapotea. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joy,
Yes.
this is Mosembe Daniel.
Yes.
I missed one KC last week and then got a notification today in the morning. So how much time do I have? Because hiyo ilinipita tu hiyo moja, but I did the others.
All right. The notification was sent to everyone in Kenai 54. And this one is to remind everyone to do their cases. And especially like you see for this week, we're going to have a lot of cases and labs.
Yep.
The moment you miss one, you're going to be left behind. Like kuna classes utakuwa unapata kuna 2 or 3 cases na maybe even 2 labs. So ndio tunawakumbusha msiachwe nyuma. Try and catch up as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Karibu. Patrick, I think you can go ahead. Sorry for that.
Sorry, Joy, I was in a call with Lanley, with our admin. So, now, question, Joy, had you onboarded him before?
Yes, I had onboarded him before, but then when he didn't join the classes, we had to remove him.
So
He actually didn't accept the email on the canvas. Yeah.
Okay. Sawa. So tutaona the final decision rests with you. So wacha tutadiscuss huko kando. For now, guys, jibabeni break. Tuonane in 10 minutes. Let me also take a short break. Okay, and share my screen. Mhm. Cool. Cool. 1 second. Let me stop sharing again. Okay. So let me see by show of hand. Are we back? If you can hear me, let me see you raising your hand. Come on, Aniskia, raise your hand. Donijue tuko class. It's your devices pekee. Let me get the right screen to share. Okay. Yeah, raise your hand and keep them raised. It is helping us even in terms of taking attendance. And please be reminded, by now you should have done 5 cases. Please be regular. Be regular in your cases. Be regular in your cases. Yeah, that's a good number. That's a good number. Okay, thank you guys. You can raise your hands. Share screen. Let's share that one. Share that one, then record. I believe recording is in session. Okay, good. Feel free to unraise your hands. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Naboth. Naboth, you have 2 cases yet to be done. Please attend to them. We have a couple of people that have their cases that you still need to do. Please attend to them because things are going to get very fast this week. Very, very fast this week. Now, ukibaki nyuma, catching up might be very, very difficult. So we are telling you guys these things for your own good. Now, let's look at S3 cost estimation. Bado tuko kwa S3, so we are looking at cost estimation. So to estimate S3 cost, consider the following factors. Here are factors that we need to consider when it comes to cost estimation for S3. One is storage class type. Storage class type. That's the first one. So standard storage is designed for the following. Remember we talked about standard storage, and we are saying standard storage is designed for the following. 1, 11 nines of durability. That one we talked about it. And now we also have 4 nines of availability. 4 nines of availability. Now, standard infrequent access, or SIA, is designed for the following. 1 is 11 nines of durability and 3 nines of availability. So you see, standard storage has higher availability by 1 9 compared to infrequent access. So when you are choosing which storage class to take, you ask yourself, which kind of availability do I need? And it's important for you to note that kuna organizations zenye that one difference in one nine difference between the 2 storage classes makes a big difference for them, because there is something that they really need to achieve. It depends with their use case. Then we also look at the amount of storage, the number and size of objects that you're going to store. Now, amount of storage is also factored in when you're thinking about your cost estimation. Number and size of object, because that one also is also calculating your storage cost. And then we look at request, the number and type of request, be it a get request nilenye you're trying to get something from the bucket, put request nilenye you're trying to weka kitu kwa bucket, or copy when you copy the bucket. So type of request, there are different rates for get request than other requests. Yeah. Again, high overview. Data transfer. Pricing is based on the amount of that is transferred out of S3 region. Oopsie. What's up with my internet? You guys can still hear me?
Yes.
Thumbs up. Oh, good. Thank you. I think kulikuwa na kabafa kadogo hapo. But data transfer, pricing is based on the amount of data that is transferred out of Amazon S3. Data transfer in in, data transfer in is free, but you incur charges for data that is transferred out. Data that is transferred out. So when you estimate cost of S3, you must consider the following factors. Storage class type. Storage class type is important. So you'll get to read through that note. Amount of storage, we've also talked about it, and request, we've also talked about it, plus the data transfer. Now, key takeaways. Key takeaway. Who would like to read this for us? Key takeaways. Nani angependa kutusomea hizi? Just unmute and read.
Amazon S3 is a fully managed cloud storage service. You store data in Amazon S3 as an object inside a bucket. You can store virtually unlimited number of objects. You pay for only what you use, and then lastly, you can access Amazon S3 at any time from anywhere through a URL.
Awesome, awesome. Yes. You can access anytime from anywhere through a URL, and we saw the URL that we're talking about. So those are some of the key takeaways. Do we have any questions up to that point? Any questions? Swali yoyote? Any questions? Any questions? I'm looking at our chat. I am quietly here, expecting you guys to ask questions. Kunyamaza kwenyu kunamaanisha mmeelewa. Kunyamaza kwenyu kunamaanisha mmeelewa. I'm trying to look at the modules. Cool. Feel free to ask any question at any point. So should you have any questions after, it's still okay. You guys can still ask. So I want us to look at this demonstration that has been pre-recorded for us by AWS. So we are going to look at that. Part of it is what I've already done for you guys. Nilionyesha vile unafanya kwa console. But let us just go through this. Just a second. Let me move that one here. Okay. So let us go through this demo. Watch it, learn about it, learn, listen. And then what we will do, we will have a deep dive later in week 6, where some of these concepts will also be covered. But I hope saizi mmepata a very good high overview, this service. So just give it a second to load. So I'll stop sharing so that I share with the sound. So I've stopped sharing. Let me reshare with the sound on. Okay, so we'll share screen 1, share it. Confirm to me if you can hear something. Oh, sorry, I had played it before, so ilikuwa imefika mwisho. I need to start it. Give it a sec. Okay.
Hello and welcome.
Can you hear it? Inasikika?
Welcome to this Academy Cloud
Inasikika? Okay, so let's go.
Foundations demonstration. In this particular segment, we will be speaking about Amazon Simple Storage Service, or Amazon S3 for short. Amazon S3 is an object storage built to store and retrieve any amount of data from anywhere on the internet. It's a simple storage service that offers an extremely durable, highly available, and infinitely scalable data storage infrastructure at very low cost. S3 provides a simple web interface that you can use to store and retrieve any amount of data at any time from anywhere on the web. Using this web service, you can easily build applications that make use of the internet storage, and since S3 is highly scalable, you only pay for what you use. You can start small and grow your application as you wish. You get no compromise on performance or reliability. S3 is also designed to be highly flexible. You can store any type and amount of data that you want. You can read the same piece of data 1,000,000 times or only for emergencies like disaster recovery. You can build a simple FTP application or a sophisticated web application like Amazon.com, the retail website. So S3 frees you as a developer to focus on innovation instead of figuring out how to store your data. So how do we get started? You need to have an Amazon Web Services account to access S3. I have here my Amazon account. I'm going to be navigating to the S3 console. We get to see that it's a relatively simple console with just a few items actually worth highlighting. The very first one is that the S3 console gives you a global view of all of your buckets. Despite the fact that a bucket actually needs to live in a particular region, the console provides you a global overview of all of the buckets existing, including the region in which they live. Notice this one on US Oregon, most of them on North Virginia. And as you may have noticed, a bucket happens to be the logical storage resource for Amazon S3. In order for us to create a bucket, we click on the Create Bucket button. A bucket needs to have a name that is DNS compliant. What this means is that in general, you want to focus on using lowercase letters, numbers, and dashes, and not make the name too big. The reason for this DNS compliance requirement is that the name of the bucket will actually be used on the URL that you use to access your files and your objects, and therefore it needs to be unique globally. If you forget the uniqueness of the name, or if you're not sure if the name is being used, the system itself gives you a heads up when a particular bucket name is already in use. Let's take the example for the bucket name test. That is a relatively common actual bucket name. If we click on create, you get to see the system tells you the bucket name already exists. Therefore, we need to apply some form of change to this particular name in order to be able to use it. Notice also the little I to the right, which kind of reminds you that the bucket name needs to be unique across all buckets in the system globally. And this has to do with the fact that the bucket name is being used in the URLs that then will access the bucket as well as the objects within it. Now, let's take this other example. In this particular case, the bucket name may not be in use. However, we're using uppercase letters, and the system makes an attempt to remind you of what is allowable versus what cannot be used. I'm going to name this particular bucket ACF S3 Demo. This appears to be a unique enough bucket. I'm choosing to store it in the Sao Paulo region as a way of putting it as far away from I am as possible. Which region do you actually choose in order to put a bucket can follow a number of requirements. You can also choose a region that is remote from your other operations for geographic redundancy and disaster recovery purposes. You can choose a region that enables you to address specific legal or regulation requirements. And finally, you can choose a region that allows you to reduce storage cost. You can choose a lower price region to save money. In this case, I'm just using Sao Paulo for demonstration purposes. Now, I can choose the Create button immediately, but let's explore what kind of questions the user interface gives us as we manufacture a bucket. I'm going to click on Next. And we get to see a number of other properties that can be attributed to this particular bucket. We get to see on the top versioning, which basically keeps all the versions of a particular object on the same bucket. When you enable versioning, multiple uploads of the same file are actually retained by a timestamp. And that actually helps you be able to recover for accidental overwrites or deletion. Enabling versioning also increases the total data size that is stored in your bucket. So you need to be mindful of that, especially when it comes to billing and pricing. We see also the item for server access logging. And this is a way of maintaining a trace of the type of access that a particular bucket is actually sustaining. Tags represent key value pairs that you can use as a way of providing kind of stickers to be able to align the use of the bucket in terms of perhaps who is the owner, who the contact person is, for what purpose is this bucket being used. Object level logging, as the name suggests, is actually a trace file that keeps a record of who is accessing objects in this particular bucket. CloudTrail will be able to maintain such items. One important item about S3 is that you can enable encryption. Encryption in S3 uses AES 256 encryption, and you have a variety of ways of managing the keys that will cipher this particular item. You can have the S3 service manage the keys itself. You can manage the keys yourself as a customer, or perhaps you may want to leverage the AWS service for key management. In that particular case, you get the freedom to choose how the keys are handled. Last but not least, you can actually have CloudWatch request metrics for the usage of this particular bucket. In this example, we're leaving everything as default. The next item has to do with permissions. And following the principle of least privilege, and as it is common with most of AWS resources, basically public access to the resources that you create is sealed shut. Unless you specifically enable access to a resource, only the owner will be able to access and manipulate these items. Notice how the block all public access is enabled. We're going to leave it as is and continue to move forward. In this panel, we are reviewing the configuration, the name of the bucket, the region, the options, as well as the permissions that have been enabled by default. We're taking it as it shows up out of the box. We're going to be creating the bucket. And now we get to see ACF S3 demo bucket. If we navigate into it, you are able to examine, number one, the region in which it lives, and the properties for the bucket can actually be modified through the Properties tab. The permissions for the bucket has its own tab, allowing you to be able to block or enable public access. You can assign a bucket policy. This will be created using the Identity and Access Management Service. You can also define an access control list. This is a legacy mechanism that actually existed prior to policies being able to be used. The Management tab allows you to be able to define lifecycle for the objects in this bucket, allows you to define perhaps analytics in terms of usage for this particular bucket. Going back to the overview, we are within the bucket and we're going to upload a particular file. Notice also the button for create folder. A folder is actually an abstract concept in the idea of a bucket. It's not really a folder the way that we got to know it using an operating system, despite the fact that the S3 interface actually presents it like that. It's basically a logical separator for you to be able to organize files within a bucket and still follow a particular hierarchy. We're not going to create a folder. However, we are going to upload a file. When we select the upload file, we click on add files. I navigate to my desktop and I'm going to select my machine profile application. This is packaged in Mac format. Notice how it already registered the name. I'm going to click on next as a way of demonstrating how for that particular object, I am the owner. I can read, write, and modify. You can add another AWS account to have access to this. We're going to leave that as is. And notice how in terms of public permissions, as we mentioned earlier, public access is blocked. As most things AWS, public access out of the box is sealed shut. Unless you specifically enable access, access will be disallowed for anyone but the owner. Clicking on Next, select the storage class for this particular object. And as you get to see, there is a significant amount of storage classes. Each of them actually has its own use and applicability for use cases. The standard storage class is usually the default storage for any uploads that you have. This is the more common item and is intended for frequently accessed data. Notice in the availability zone, it indicates that at least 3 availability zones are actually at play when you upload the object. And this is how S3 is able to implement high availability, high durability. Each object as you upload it actually gets copied into 3 separate availability zones, and 3 copies of this particular item exist at all times. In the event of a failure on a particular facility, you always have redundant copies that actually become available to you. Now, interestingly enough, the second is the intelligent tier. As the name suggests, this is for long-lived data with changing or unknown access pattern. So Amazon S3 Intelligent Tiering is an S3 storage class for data with unknown access patterns or changing access patterns that are difficult to learn. It is the first cloud storage class that delivers automatic cost savings by moving objects between 2 access tiers when access patterns change. One tier is optimized for frequent access, and the other lower cost tiers are designed for infrequent access. Objects uploaded or transitioned to S3 Intelligent Tiering are automatically stored in the frequent access tier. S3 Intelligent Tiering works by monitoring access patterns and then moving the objects that have not been accessed in 30 consecutive days to the infrequent access tier. If the objects are accessed later, S3 Intelligent Tiering moves the object back to the frequent access tiers. This means that all objects stored in S3 Intelligent Tiering are always available when needed. There are no retrieval fees, so you won't see unexpected increases in storage bills when access patterns change. So S3 Intelligent Tiering is for data where you don't really know the access patterns or whether they're changing and you cannot really discern them. So it is ideal for data sets where you may not be able to anticipate what the access pattern it's going to be. It's all about saving you money and maintaining the object in the proper tier. S3 Standard Infrequent Access is Amazon's S3 storage class for data that is accessed less frequently but requires rapid access when needed. S3 Standard IA, as it is called, offers the high durability, throughput, and low latency of Amazon S3 Standard Storage class. It also provides you a low per gigabyte storage price and per gigabyte retrieval fee. So this combination of low cost and high performance makes S3 Standard IA ideal for long-term storage, backups, and as a data store for disaster recovery. The S3 Standard IA storage class is set at the object level and can exist in the same bucket as the S3 Standard or S3 One Zone IA storage classes. This will allow you to use the S3 lifecycle policies to automatically transition objects between storage classes without any application changes. This particular storage category is also used by the intelligent tier. S3 One Zone IA storage class is an Amazon S3 storage class that customers can choose to store objects in a single availability zone. S3 One Zone IA storage redundantly stores data within that single availability zone to deliver storage at 20% less cost than geographically redundant S3 Standard IA or S3 Standard, which stores data redundantly across multiple geographically separated availability zones. S3 One Zone IA offers 99% availability. But unlike the S3 Standard and S3 Standard IA storage classes, data stored in S3 One Zone IA will be lost in the event of an availability zone destruction. So you need to be able to reproduce the data that is stored in S3 One Zone IA. This is usually thumbnail pictures from a high-resolution picture catalog or data that normally lives in its natural form someplace else, and you use the S3 One Zone IA storage tier as a way of maintaining some variation copy, usually a smaller version or perhaps a lower resolution. Glacier Deep Archive are actually used for cold permanent storage. Glacier, as the name suggests, is frozen storage. It gives you a significant price reduction in terms of store. However, it comes at the expense of having high latency, high wait times before you actually retrieve the object. Reduced redundancy is not recommended to be used. It's more expensive than any of the other tiers, and it is a storage class that is being deprecated. Moving forward on this particular panel, we get to review the permissions, and we finally get to upload our object. The panel indicates a progress report of the upload until we finally get it accessible. At this point, we see the file being uploaded. We are within the bucket ACF S3 demo, and we get to see the different tabs for the bucket configuration. If we select the actual file, we then get to be able to inspect the idea of the latest version. We left versioning unavailable for this particular bucket as well as this particular object within the bucket. However, you get to see the metadata that is associated with the file. We call S3 object store. And despite the fact that you're actually uploading logical files, they become objects simply because these files get wrapped around with additional metadata like owner, last modify, storage class, whether server-side encryption is enabled or not, and that turns the file into an object. More importantly, also notice the object URL in order for you to be able to access it using an API or using a web browser from anywhere. By virtue of the permissions that we actually use, which are the default permissions, public access to this particular object is actually disabled. The first thing that needs to happen is that we need to enable public access on the bucket. We're going to do that as an exercise, although the best practice is for you to be able to determine who will have access to this and manufacture a bucket policy that will allow access only and exactly as you need to. Public access to S3 resources is frowned upon and usually causes more harm than good. However, for the sake of an exercise and to demonstrate the built-in protections that the system has, let's go through the mechanics of habilitating public access. I'm going to navigate to the bucket that contains the object. And in the particular bucket, I'm going to select the Permissions tab. And notice how there's a full set of block public access settings. I'm going to click on the Edit menu and then uncheck Block Public Access. Please note when I click on Save, the system actually asks me to confirm that this is in fact what I want to do. This is a reminder that updating public access settings will have an impact on the bucket and all of its contents. I use the word confirm and verify that that's in fact what I want to see happen. Now I have enabled public access at the bucket level. So now the blocking of all public access has been disabled. I can navigate back to the Overview tab. I can select the file, and then on the actions, I can select Make Public. The system reminds me that everyone will have access to this particular file, and I confirm. At this point, I will expect to be able to navigate back into examining the file metadata. And when clicking the item, I will expect a download dialog to permit me now to be able to download the file. There is a significant amount of other features that are worth exploring with S3, especially when it comes to properties. The idea of versioning, the idea of server access logging. You can use an S3 bucket to be able to host a static website. A static website is a website where no dynamic information is generated. This could be just static HTML pages, JPEGs, even perhaps videos or pictures. And it does not require for you to manage a web server or anything of the sort. It scales up and down as needed and can be easily configured. In terms of management, there are a number of other properties that you can set up. Notice default encryption, as well as things like events, where the S3 bucket will generate an event, perhaps to activate a Lambda function when an object is actually uploaded, and the idea of who pays when a particular object is associated. This is more an introductory demo for Simple Storage Service. I hope you found it useful, and thanks for watching.
Awesome. Awesome. So I guess you guys have seen, have gone through that explainer. And as I mentioned, some of the content that has been covered there is actually, it will be covered in our deep dive in week 6. So this video will come in handy still in that week, and you can keep on watching the video just to understand how to navigate your way around S3. And I like the fact that they've even gone back to give us a very good summary of what we've covered in our class today. So that was a good video. That was a very, very good video. So we are going to go right now. We will be breaking into our breakout rooms, from where we will be able to do our KC for this unit. And then after we've done our KC, then we can also get our channel related news or discussions, if any, and then break for lunch. Then after lunch, we will be coming back for an introductory session on AWS EC2. So right now in our groups, we will go and do this lab, this KC. This KC on AWS S3, introduction to Amazon S3. So this is what we are going to do in our breakout rooms. And so in a minute, all of you will be moved to your breakout rooms. And then don't leave the breakout room. If you leave the breakout, don't leave the meeting. Don't leave the main meeting when you are sent to your breakout rooms. Once you are done with the breakout rooms, your channel lead will just close it down, and then the meeting will end and we will meet in the afternoon. I hope you guys have had a good time in the morning session. So off to our breakout rooms.
Patrick,
Yes, yes.
I accidentally said not now.
Oh, not now. Okay, okay. Do me a favor, leave the meeting and then rejoin the main meeting, and then I'll be able to reassign you.
Me too, Patrick.
Okay, just leave and then rejoin.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi.
Could you please send me to 154? I was kicked out.
Oh, so you are in 54?
Yes.
Juma? Okay.
Yes, Juma.
Reassigned.
Thank you.
Chrono, 53. Reassigned.
Yes,
Welcome.
53, yes.
Samuel, you are in 50?
54.
Samuel, 54, assigned. I'm waiting for Befalin. Mm.